Ethan, Reilley, and Hunter were the Skull Smashers. They were a thrash metal band that had recorded 5 songs, put them on the internet, developed a following, and then got signed by a label. They were passing through Nevermore Hollows on their way to Savannah for the next stop on their first ever concert tour. Considering the Savannah gig was 2 days away, their label had chosen Nevermore Hollows as a layover and had booked them and their 2 roadies rooms at a motel. When the label had given the band the 2 roadies, they thought it was extremely cool until they met them. They were 2 old guys named Frito and Snowball who had been professional roadies since the 1970s and were always high on one drug or another. Frito was thin and wiry and had frizzy hair that hung to his shoulders. Snowball was short, had a paunch, and wore basketball shorts with white athletic socks and a Boomer Band concert shirt. They got their nicknames because of how they acted when they got high. Frito would gorge himself on giant bags of Fritos chips, and Snowball would not shut up complaining about how the Hostess Baking Company had stopped making the cream-filled chocolate cakes that were covered in coconut shavings and pink icing. He would go on and on about how the perfect mix of sugars in those treats, called snowballs, would lengthen his mellow. Though the bandmates initially hated Frito and Snowball, they'd come to care for them like how someone would love a couple of mentally challenged pets. They especially loved Frito's and Snowball's wild stories from when they worked for various famous rock bands back in the day when being a rock star was about excess and debauchery. Frito was driving the bus, which was a 1968 Volvo B58. The guys in the band hated it because it had been painted mustard yellow and didn't look like anything an up-and-coming thrash metal band would be riding around in. So Ethan had the idea to repaint the bus. They'd bought 100 cans of spray paint and used it to change the color from mustard yellow to abyss black. Then Ethan had used other colors to paint macabre scenes of death and mutilation on the sides. The owner of the label, a miser of a man named Hank, had originally hated the idea, but Ethan had pointed out that the shocking scenes of mayhem and decapitations was the kind of free advertising that sold tickets to their show because it made people want to see the band out of morbid curiosity. They had been on the road all day and had stopped at Winona's Waffle Hut for an early dinner. Then they had wearily boarded the bus and were on their way to the motel. They were full and tired and ready for bed.
Man, I'm ready to smoke a fatty and mellow for the night,
Frito said. Snowball was sitting in the seat behind him. He stared out the window with a look of pure amazement on his face. Suddenly, the corners of his mouth twitched a confused frown, and he said, "Am I real?" "What the hell's wrong with Snowball?" Reilley asked. Reilley was 23, had shoulder-length hair, and was a bit of a hothead. He was also the lead guitarist, so that was spot on for the stereotype. He'd grown up on a small farm, and this tour was the first time he'd ever been away from home. And he loved it. Hunter was the drummer for the band. He was quieter than the others and had a wild nest of curly hair that hung down to his waist. He also loved being on the road. Though the days were long and boring, the shows at night gave him an adrenaline rush that was addictive, even more so than when he was riding his motorcycle. "He took a hit of LSD back at the waffle place," Hunter replied. "He's pretty much tripping at the moment." Ethan was the bass player and singer. He was a health nut who tried to work out every day that the travel schedule would allow. Once they checked into a motel, he hit the gym if the motel had one. If there wasn't one, he'd find a gym close enough and spend an hour there. He was also a member of a Greek Orthodox church back in his hometown, so every Sunday morning he'd make Frito drop him off at the closest Orthodox church so he could worship. He wore his hair shaved on the sides, long everywhere else, and usually had it in a ponytail. "Too bad we don't have a gig tonight," he said. "Maybe Snowball would give us another viral moment." Ethan was referring to their second live gig ever, which was in Atlanta 3 months ago. Snowball had taken a hit of LSD, and when it kicked in, he'd been convinced that the amplifiers the band used on stage had sprouted legs and mouths and were threatening to eat the band. He'd found a sledgehammer somewhere and ran onto the stage and bashed the amplifiers to bits, all while screaming the lyrics to Hammer Smashed Face by the band Cannibal Corpse. Though he destroyed thousands of dollars worth of equipment and broke a security guard's foot, dozens of videos from various angles taken by those in the crowd hit the internet and gained millions of views. It was the best advertising the band could have hoped for. Song sales and downloads skyrocketed. That single drug-fueled incident, combined with good musicianship and clever lyrics, had made Skull Smashers extremely popular. Snowball jolted as if electrocuted. He shot a wild look around at everyone. His eyes settled on Hunter. "Do you see me?" Hunter saw this as an opportunity to screw with the poor guy. "Man, I really miss Snowball." Snowball's eyes shot wide. "Oh shit, what happened to me?" Everyone in the bus struggled to keep straight faces. Reilley, continuing with the ruse, gave a sad shake of his head and said, "Did they ever find the rest of his body?" "Nothing but his left foot," Ethan said. Snowball covered his face with his hands. "Oh, what the hell? Only my left foot? Oh, man, did the Go-Go's get me?" The guys in the band snickered at Snowball's distress.
Come on, guys. That's low. Cut poor Snowball some slack. You know what happened with him and the Go-Go's? Even after all these years, he still got PTSD about it.
"Yeah, he told us that story," Reilley said. "But I call bullshit, man. The Go-Go's were a cheesy 80s girl punk band. Ain't no way the Go-Go's were Satanists." Frito shot a look at Reilley through the rearview mirror.
It ain't no bullshit, man. I swear to you, if Snowball says he walked in on the Go-Go's performing a human sacrifice, it happened.
Snowball jerked his head back and forth at the conversation that was happening between Frito and Reilley. "Wait a minute. Can you guys hear me? Oh, I think I'm dead. Am I a ghost?"
You ain't no ghost, Snowball. You're just tripping, and these guys are messing with you. Just ride the rainbow road till you find the end, little buddy. It'll wear off soon enough.
Snowball started crying. "I don't know, Frito. This trip feels different." Then he gave a pleading look at Hunter. "Hold me down, boy. I think I'm going to float away." Hunter rolled his eyes. Reilley and Ethan chuckled.
We're here, man,
Frito said. Here was the Devilfish Motel, a 40-room unit sprawled out in the shape of a U with a pool in the center. It was located just beyond the town of Nevermore Hollows on a cliff that overlooked the ocean. A long, winding road led up to the back of the hotel, which was where the parking lot was located. The two shorter wings of the hotel pointed toward the ocean. As they drove, dusk descended onto the land, and the sign at the entrance of the parking lot blinked on. It was one of those nostalgic roadside motel signs shaped like a manta ray, outlined in red neon, which blinked back and forth in such a way that it made it look like the fins were flapping. The name of the motel was written in dim white neon. Ethan pointed out that the letters F, I, and H on the sign did not light up. "Look," he said, "it spells Devil's Motel." "Cool," Reilley said. "Maybe we'll meet the devil here tonight." Frito stopped the bus so fast that Snowball tumbled out of his seat. He turned and glared at the boys.
"Don't ever say something like that, man. I know this whole thrash metal image you guys have is dark and all, but you boys don't believe in it. You're all good boys, and you use it as a gimmick. But me and Snowball, we done seen some crazy satanic shit in our day. So you don't even joke about that kind of stuff. Okay?"
Frito's intensity caused the boys in the band to take pause. Finally, Ethan said, "Okay, Frito, we understand. We're just kidding around." He turned to Snowball. "Sorry, Snowball. Everything's going to be okay. We'll take care of you till you come down." Frito nodded and turned back to navigating the bus around the back of the hotel and into a parking spot set aside for buses and RVs. They all stepped out of the bus and headed through a breezeway that led to the front of the motel, looking for the check-in office. Reilley and Ethan carried their guitars, which were in their cases. Hunter always carried a couple of drumsticks in his back pocket so that he could tap out rhythms when sitting around watching videos on his phone. Of the 3 wings of the motel, the back wing was the longest and consisted of 10 rooms at the bottom floor and 10 on the top. Both short wings consisted of 5 rooms at the bottom and 5 on the top, totaling 40 rooms. The top rooms could be accessed by stairwells located in the back corners of the motel. The edge of the cliff overlooking the ocean was 30 yards beyond a patch of landscaped grass. A massive full moon hung in the sky, creating a picturesque view. As they walked through a dimly lit breezeway from the parking lot toward the center of the motel property, an old man with crazy hair and insane eyes came stumbling down the stairs. His clothes were torn and covered in splatters of what might have been blood, and he was breathing hard. When he hit the bottom step, he grabbed Reilley by the shoulders and said,
"Did you check in? You didn't, did you?"
Reilley didn't like it when people touched him. He pushed the old man away. "Back off, man! Don't put your hands on me!" The old guy nearly fell on his butt but grabbed the railing and steadied himself. He leaned forward, determined.
"Have you checked in yet?"
Hunter was polite by nature. He wanted to calm the old geezer down. "No, sir. We haven't checked in yet." The old man snatched Hunter's hand, pulled him close, and said,
"You still have time. Don't check into this God-forsaken place. Leave. Leave now."
Hunter looked at the stains on the old man's shirt and jeans. "Sir, is that blood? Are you okay?" The old man looked down at the stains. Then he held out his hands, and for the first time everyone could see that his knuckles were bruised, as if he'd been in one hell of a fight.
"Yes, it's blood, but it's not mine. It's theirs." "Theirs who, man?"
Frito said. He reached out a hand, intending to comfort the old guy, but before he could, the old man pushed by him and ran into the courtyard. The old man turned and pointed at the boys.
"Theirs. My friends. The monsters got 'em."
He then turned his crazy eyes back on Reilley.
"For the love of God, don't check in."
"Screw you, old man," Reilley replied. "You can't tell me what to do." Ethan put a hand on Reilley's shoulder. It was an indication that he should take a breath and calm down. The old guy shook his head. The crazy in his eyes was replaced with fatalistic acceptance. He lifted a gnarled finger at Reilley. Everyone could see that it was broken and bent at an angle.
"I warned you, but you won't listen. There's nothing else I can do for you. Or for me. But I know how to escape."
He paused and gave a sad shake of his head, then said, "You're all doomed." The old man turned and ran past the pool, through the yellow glow of the lights scattered around the property, straight across the small yard, and jumped off the cliff. "Holy crap," Reilley said. "That guy just killed himself." Ethan and Reilley dropped their guitar cases onto the ground, and they all ran over and peeked over the edge of the cliff. The old man's body lay broken on the rocks below. Everyone was rocked by what they'd just witnessed. Their faces were pale. Their hands trembled. "I'll call 911, Ethan said, and he took out his phone. "Crap, I don't have any service. Do any of you guys?" Everyone checked their phones. None of them had service.
"The check-in clerk might have a phone, man,"
Frito said. They hustled back across the courtyard toward the motel office. The lights around the motel cast everything in a sick yellow glow with deep black shadows. The neon sign above the office flickered rapidly on and off, making the shadows dance. They pushed through the door and into a small room with a counter at the back. Behind the counter stood a girl in her 20s. She was dressed like an 80s rocker chick. Her platinum blonde hair was teased high. Tight red leather pants hugged her hips. A thick black belt with chrome studs was draped around her waist, and white fingerless lace gloves on her hands allowed her long black nails to glisten in the grungy fluorescent light. She also wore a Slayer concert t-shirt with no sleeves. It was cut off, showing her midriff. Her navel was pierced with a ring, from which dangled an upside-down cross. Even though the guys had just witnessed the old geezer kill himself, they were stopped in their tracks when they looked at the girl. "Damn, she's hot," Reilley said.
"What an angel,"
Frito whispered. Snowball was still tripping down the Rainbow Road. He rubbed at his bleary red eyes, then looked closer at the clerk. "Looks more like a demon to me." "Focus," Ethan said. "This is an emergency." The girl had a name tag pinned above the pentagram on her t-shirt. It said her name was Tiffany. She looked up and flashed them with a crimson-lipped smile. "You boys checking in?" Even though he was as shaken as the others, Ethan carried himself with confidence that helped bring calm to the chaos. He stepped forward. "First, we just witnessed a man jump off the cliff. Our phones don't have service here, and we need to know if you can call 911. Tiffany seemed nonplussed. Her smile never wavered. "Was it the old guy wearing a Sepultura concert shirt?" Ethan shrugged. He was old, but I didn't notice his shirt." "It was a Sepultura shirt," Hunter said. "I thought it was curious a guy his age would be wearing it. Most old guys don't like that kind of music." Snowball was now twitching due to the effects of the LSD. "That old guy looked familiar," he slurred. "I done met him before." He pointed at Reilley. "Maybe he was you." Reilley shot Snowball an irritated glance. What's that supposed to mean? Snowball shrugged. Just saying he looked familiar. Hell, maybe he was me. Or maybe he was that singer for the Doors. I did roadie for them right before he died. Tiffany seemed concerned. Is he okay? He seems off. He dropped acid an hour or so ago, Ethan said. He's a little out of his mind, but he'll be okay. That old guy that jumped off the cliff, was he a guest here? Yeah, Tiffany replied. He's been hanging around a lot lately. He's a bit unhinged. I'll call the sheriff in a moment, but first, let me get you all checked in so you can get settled before they get here. Let's see, I showed that you have 5 rooms booked. Here are your keys. Okay, Ethan said, finding it strange that their comfort should take priority over a man's death. As he distributed the keys, he said, The reservation should be under Skull Smashers. Tiffany's eyes shot wide. She giggled and clapped her hands together. I knew you guys were a band. Hey, maybe once you sign in, we can party. In addition to Ethan's faith and efforts to stay fit, he was the creator of an underground comic that he published. He preferred to spend his quiet time drawing. It was something he was good at, and it helped him relax. There were times after a killer show where he was pumped up, riding the residual energy of the crowd and his own adrenaline, and the only thing that calmed him was drawing. So he balked at Tiffany's request. Maybe, he said, we need to deal with the dead guy first. Well, I'm down to party, Reilley said. He couldn't take his eyes off Tiffany's pierced navel. Yeah, Hunter said, not only because Tiffany was hot, but also because he just liked hanging out and having a good time. Me too. Maybe some pizza and beer? Tiffany held up both her hands and the rock and roll devil horns. Hell yeah, that would rock. Okay if I invite a couple of friends? Hunter and Reilley exchanged a hopeful and excited glance. Reilley said, Hell yeah.
Oh, for crying out loud, man,
Frito said. He pushed forward and leaned against the counter.
It's my job to manage the logistical stuff. Where'd I sign?
Tiffany reached under the counter and retrieved an old guest sign-in book. The owner of this motel is old school and doesn't like using computers. He thinks it adds to the retro charm to use sign-in books. Will you be signing for everyone in the band? Frito nodded.
Yeah, I guess so, if that's okay with you.
Tiffany handed him a pen. Sure, if we all agree that you're the person responsible, you can sign for the whole band. If you would, sign it as Skull Smashers, then your name beside that. Okay?
Sure.
He took the pen, then signed the book. He handed the pen back to Tiffany. She took it, glanced at everyone in the room, and said, Well, that makes it official. Now that you're checked in, the party starts. Hail Satan! She took the pen and stabbed it deep into Frito's chest. Frito hissed, Shit! He stumbled back, clutching at the pen. Hey! Reilley yelled. He strode forward and put his finger in Tiffany's face. What the hell are you doing? Tiffany turned to him. Her smile, which had been bright, beautiful, seductive when they first entered the office, was now ominous, psychotic, unhinged. And to everyone's amazement, it continued to grow impossibly wide, stretching beyond what was normal, and there were now too many teeth. Her black nails had grown long and sharp and looked like talons. Let's rock and roll, she said. Cat quick, she slashed the talons of her right hand at Reilley. He jumped back from the counter, trying to get out of her reach, but was unsuccessful. She sliced 4 long gouges on his forearm. They weren't deep, but they stung like hell and began to bleed. Ethan grabbed Frito and pulled him toward the front door. "Everybody out, now!" Hunter was the first to reach the door. He held it open while Snowball stumbled through. Ethan and Reilley snatched their guitar cases and ran through the door, pulling Frito along with them. Behind them, Tiffany yelled at them. It was a quote from an old Eagles song that made their blood run cold. "You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave." Then she began laughing. It sounded like the shrieks of a dozen demons. Hunter slammed the door shut behind them. He noticed that Tiffany stayed behind the desk. She was dancing while continuing with the insane laughter. Ethan quickly checked Frito. The pin had missed his heart and instead was plunged into his shoulder. "I'm going to leave it in, Frito, until we can get away from this place. Are you going to be okay?" Frito was pale, and he was in pain, but he nodded.
"I've been hurt worse, man. Stevie Nicks once shot me in the leg because I gave her the wrong microphone during a sound check."
Ethan had always doubted the wild stories Frito and Snowball told them, but with what had just happened, he was beginning to think that maybe those 2 old roadies were telling the truth all along. "Is this really happening?" Hunter asked. "Or did Snowball slip us some of his acid?" Reilley held up his arm. "This is real. Trust me, it hurts like hell, man." Hunter took a heartbeat to consider all that was happening. "Then what the hell is going on?" "I don't know," Ethan said. "The important thing is we get out of here. Then we can call the sheriff. Let's get back to the bus." He took another glance into the office at Tiffany. She had jumped up onto the counter and was dancing Coyote Ugly style. She had sprouted horns on her head and a long black tail that writhed serpent-like from the back of her red leather pants. She kept singing that line about checking in and not leaving, over and over, punctuated with shrieks of laughter. "Let's go," he said, and headed toward the breezeway that led back to the parking lot. Their path took them near a round landscaped area that held a palm tree and some bright-colored flowers, which created a small oasis that would be shaded in the daytime. Frito held one hand against his wounded shoulder. With his other, he pointed across the oasis at the pool.
"What the hell is that?"
Everyone stopped and looked at what Frito was pointing at. Under the surface of the lighted pool was a large shadow. It was easily 8 feet long from head to flattened tail. It had 2 fins, one on each side of its body, as well as human-like arms and legs. It floated slowly in their direction. Then, faster than any of them could have imagined, the creature darted toward them through the water like a torpedo. Everyone turned to run, but the creature was too quick. It shot out of the pool, into the air, and landed on all 4s in front of them. It pushed itself up onto its long, powerful legs. It towered over them, blocking their way. Its slimy skin was mottled bayou brown and swamp water tan. Its massive head was like that of a hellbender salamander that was native to the area, and it had 2 beady eyes. Its mouth looked like a ragged slit. Its flat tail swished wetly back and forth. Reilley had spent his whole life on the family farm, which had 2 ponds and a wide stream on the property. He was the first to recognize what the beast was. "It's part man, part giant salamander," he said. "Whatever it is, it's dangerous," Ethan said. "I'll distract it. The rest of you get to the bus." Hunter stepped beside Ethan. "I'm not leaving you, man." Ethan nodded his appreciation. "Okay, then. You and I distract it. The rest of you run. We'll be right behind you." Reilley didn't want to leave Ethan and Hunter, but he knew that it was a good plan. He would make sure that Frito and Snowball made it to the bus, then come back and help. "Ready," he said. "Go!" Ethan yelled. He and Hunter juked to the left, yelling at the creature, trying to keep its attention on them. The creature shot toward Ethan and Hunter. As it did, it opened its mouth. The teeth were surprisingly small, but very sharp. They looked like dozens of tiny needles. It snapped at Hunter, who dodged the attack, but the creature still caught a mouthful of his long hair. The creature yanked its head back and pulled a chunk of hair free. "Damn it!" Hunter hissed. Reilley, Snowball, and Frito ran around behind the creature. Due to the effects of the acid, Snowball was slower and less agile than the other two. The creature saw that they were trying to escape, and it lashed out with its tail and hit Snowball behind the knees, tripping him. Snowball fell hard on the ground and rolled to the edge of the pool. In a muddy brown blur, the creature turned and chomped down on Snowball's neck. It wrapped both arms around him and rolled off the edge and into the pool. Snowball screamed until he was pulled under the surface. Then the creature bit into his head, causing a violent bloom of blood and brain matter to cloud the water. Frito stopped cold.
"Oh, no. Snowball."
"He's gone," Ethan yelled. "There's nothing we can do now. Go, get to the bus." They ran through the breezeway, Ethan in the lead. But just as he stepped off the back sidewalk, he hit an invisible barrier so hard that it knocked the air out of him. The others were able to stop before crashing into the unseen barrier. Ethan caught his breath and wiped at a spot above his eye. There was a small cut, and it was bleeding, but only a little. "Dude," Reilley said, breathing hard, "is that a force field? Are we stuck here?" Ethan put out his hands and could feel resistance. It seems like it," he said. "Spread out. Check to see if there's a way through." Frito was crying softly. He wiped at his eyes and set about exploring the force field. Reilley stepped all the way to the back corner of the motel and checked there. Hunter kept watch for the Hellbender man so the others could focus. After a moment, they confirmed that there was no way to get past it to the parking lot.
"Do you think it goes all around the motel, man?"
"Only one way to find out," Ethan said. "But let's stick together. We go all around the place, checking as we go." They took off around the corner and made their way completely around the motel. As they crossed the front, they were able to see that Tiffany was still dancing on the counter, praising Satan aloud, her tail swishing back and forth as she gyrated, and that the pool creature had eaten half of Snowball. Bits of their friend floated on the surface of the pool. When they made their way back to where they started, they made sure to stand in the shadows, which was easy because the only lights at the back of the motel were from the lamp posts in the parking lot. Frito said,
"What do we do now, man?"
"I'm not sure," Ethan said. "We're exposed just standing around. Tiffany or that pool monster can come at us at any time. I say we go into one of our rooms and hunker down there until we can figure something out." Reilley shook his head. "If we're in a room, we could be trapped." Ethan considered Reilley's point of view. "Maybe, but we don't know what else is out here. We could barricade the door, and I saw that each room has a back window. They're small, but I think we could squeeze through if we needed to escape." Hunter broke his usual silence. I think Ethan's plan is the best we have at the moment.
Shh,
Frito said.
I heard a sound, man.
They were standing close to the breezeway that they had used to enter the motel. There was another breezeway on the other end. Frito pointed toward it.
Something's moving down there.
They could make out a large, bulbous shape in the gloom. A woman's voice called out, "Housekeeping, can I help you?" Reilley and Frito and Hunter glanced at Ethan, looking for his guidance, hopeful that the maid could help them. He shook his head and whispered, "Wait, remember that Tiffany wasn't what she seemed." They all turned their attention to the shape as it moved out of the shadows and into the pale light that spilled from the parking lot. Upon seeing it, Reilley hissed, "Shit!" Frito, who had never once shown any religious tendencies, made the sign of the cross and whispered,
Dear Mother of God.
Hunter only grunted in surprise. What crawled into the light was not fully a woman, though it again announced in a woman's voice, "Housekeeping, can I help you?" It had the body and head of a Hispanic woman. Her torso was fat and round. 2 insect-like arms protruded from her sides, and her legs were thick and long and backward jointed like those of a cricket, making her look as if she were in a constant squat in anticipation of making a jump. 2 long antennae sprouted from between 2 dull black eyes. Remnants of a blue and white maid's uniform clung to her torso. A bloody name tag clung to one of the strips of cloth, stating that her name was Esmeralda. The maid thing turned to face them and said, "Housekeeping." Then it took a long hop toward them, landing only 12 feet or so away. "Run," Ethan said, "back around the side of the building." He and Hunter waited for Reilley and Frito to make it around the corner. Then they turned to follow, but Esmeralda took another long leap and landed on Ethan's back, knocking him to the ground. He rolled, trying to get away, as the monster leaned down to take a bite of him. But before she could, Hunter started punching her on the side of the head. Then Reilley and Frito slammed into her. Reilley had taken his Flying V guitar out of its case and was using it as a bat to beat on the monster. It worked, because Esmeralda stopped trying to bite Ethan and turned toward Reilley and held up her insect-like arms in defense. Ethan rolled out from under the monster and scrambled out of the way. "Come on, let's go!" Esmeralda screamed in rage and spun toward Reilley, who took a final swing with his guitar, then turned and ran around the corner. Ethan and Hunter were right behind him. They ran back to the front of the motel and stopped so they could peek inside the office to see if Tiffany was still there. She was gone. "Crap," Ethan said. "There's no telling where she is. Let's get to a room and figure out our next step." They crept carefully around the pool. Hellbender Man was still working on what was left of poor Snowball. Ethan headed toward the first room on the bottom floor. "Wait," Reilley said. "What the hell are you doing? All of our keys are for rooms on the second floor." "Calm down," Ethan said. He didn't like Reilley's tone, but understood that they were all under a lot of stress. "I grabbed this off that housemaid monster." He held up a key card. "It's the house cleaning key. It was sticking out of her pocket. It should open up any door we need." "Oh, I see," Reilley said. "Sorry, man." "It's all good," Ethan said. He swiped the card and pushed the door open and stepped inside and looked down the barrel of a 9mm pistol. It was held by a 20-something black guy with cornrows. "Who the hell are you?" The black guy wasn't the only person in the room. To Ethan's left was a man who looked to be in his 50s. In his right hand he held a box cutter. Under his left arm he carried an orange and white checkered cremation urn displaying the University of Tennessee logo. He pointed the knife at Ethan and said, "Better yet, what are you?" Ethan read the room. These two guys were scared. And the question the old guy asked revealed that they knew this damn motel was filled with monsters. "We're human," Ethan said. "Our friend just got killed by a monster in the pool." The black guy shot a questioning look. The old guy narrowed his eyes at Ethan, made up his mind, and said, "Let 'em in." The black guy hesitated. "You sure?" The old man nodded. "Yeah, I'm sure. Let 'em in before another one of the freaks comes along." The black guy lowered the gun and stepped back. Ethan, Reilley, Hunter, and Frito stepped inside. Reilley held his guitar by the neck. After fighting the maid creature, Ethan had been able to snatch his bass, which was still in its case. "Sorry about that, man," the black guy said. "We done seen too much shit and lost too many people to trust anything here. I'm Kendrick. That old guy, he's Sean." Ethan nodded, introduced everyone, and said, "What in the world is happening here?" There was a small table and 2 chairs next to the window. Sean set the cremation urn on the table and took a seat in one of the chairs. "Well, the short answer is this place is haunted by ghosts, freaks, and monsters. Once we checked in, we couldn't leave. There were others when Kendrick and I got here, but they're dead now." Ethan and Hunter leaned against the wall. Reilley peeked beyond the curtains and out into the courtyard. Frito sat on the edge of one of the 2 queen-size beds, holding a hand over the wound in his shoulder. "The clerk changed into some kind of demon or something," Ethan said. Kendrick had stepped to the back of the room near the bathroom. "Yeah, that sounds about right. That crazy bitch might have been hot, but, man, she nearly got me." Ethan noticed that Kendrick seemed tense. He stood as if he were on guard. Ethan didn't blame him, but sensed that something else was going on. "It seems," Ethan said, "that we're all stuck here. We've already lost people we care about. Trust is hard to come by, especially in situations like this, but we need to put all our cards on the table. We all want to survive." He nodded at Kendrick. "What are you hiding?" Kendrick cut his eyes back at Sean. He clearly deferred to the older man, and Ethan could see why. Sean carried himself with quiet strength and grace. Sean respectfully dipped his head toward Ethan. "Fair enough," he said. Then he motioned at Kendrick. "Let 'em out." Kendrick stepped aside, and the bathroom door eased open. 2 young women stepped out. They couldn't have been more than 20 years old. The taller one was a black girl. She gave a hesitant wave. "I'm Cora." The other girl was a blonde. I'm Adeline." Kendrick said, "They all checked in at the same time I did yesterday, but Sean was already here." "I arrived a couple hours before them," Sean clarified. Cora took a seat on the edge of the other bed. "We were passing through on our way to spring break in Savannah. There was a 3rd girl. Her name was Macy. When she entered her room, something from under the bed snatched her and dragged her under. Adeline and I both saw it happen, but when we looked under the bed, there was nothing but blood. lots of blood, and Macy was just gone. A tear escaped from Adeline's eye and rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away. We tried to call the sheriff, but our phones don't work. And there's some kind of barrier that's keeping us from getting into the parking lot. Us too, Reilley said. Hunter had been listening, taking it all in. He had been trained by his dad, who was a retired Army Ranger, to always be level-headed and assess any situation. What steps have you taken to escape? He asked. Sean leaned forward in his chair. We tried to break through the barrier during the daytime. We tried various spots all around the motel, but we couldn't find an opening. Kendrick tried firing a shot, but the bullet hit the barrier and just stopped mid-air. Then it slid to the ground. I tried using my box cutter, but all I got was that strange resistance. Yeah, Kendrick said. I even climbed on the roof and tried firing a shot from a higher point. I discovered that the barrier seems to stop about 100 feet, because I can get a shot over it at that height. Also, birds can fly over the motel without hitting the barrier. Hunter took a beat to consider that information. Then he pointed at the old phone sitting on the nightstand between the beds. Have any of you tried using the phone to call out? Sean, Kendrick, and the girls all exchanged a fearful look. Then Sean said, We tried in this room and Kendrick's room. There's somebody or something on the line, and it blocks us from calling out. What do you mean? Hunter asked. Sean motioned at the phone. See for yourself, but I warn you, it's weird. Hunter shot Ethan a glance, then stepped over to the phone. He picked it up and listened, then made a disturbed face. He hit the button to put the phone on speaker so everyone could hear. There was a voice, deep, guttural, angry, full of hate, and it knew Hunter's name.
I'm gonna rip your guts out, Hunter. I'm gonna bathe in your viscera, Hunter. I'm going to gorge myself on your blood, Hunter. Then I'm gonna take your corpse and...
Hunter disconnected the call. Though what they had just heard was chilling, disturbing on a spiritual level, he shrugged and gave a cavalier smile. So, we can't use the phones.
Can we take this damn pin out of my shoulder now?
Frito said.
It hurts like a mother.
Cora and Adeline sprang into action. We're nursing students, Cora said. Let us take a look. The girls motioned for Frito to step over to the vanity, switched on all the lights, and began taking a look. They were gentle, efficient, and were happy to have something to do. Within a few moments, they had the pin out and the wound dressed. They gave Frito some aspirin for the pain. While the girls worked on Frito, Kendrick and Sean told their stories about how they came to be at the Devilfish Motel. I met my wife Jennifer here in Nevermore Hollows 20 years ago, Sean explained. We were both passing through for business and just happened to stop for food at the Waffle Hut on the other side of town. We struck up a conversation, exchanged numbers, and within a year, we were married. We came here every year on our anniversary and would hang out on the beach at the bay. She died last month. And as you can tell, she was a huge University of Tennessee fan. She'd always joked that she wanted her urn to sport the UT logo. Even though she was just being silly, somehow it seemed right. But Before she died, she asked me to spread her ashes in the bay here because that's where we spent some happy times together. I checked in here yesterday and, well, you know the rest." Everyone looked at Kendrick. Up to this point, he'd seemed strong, confident, but now he cast his eyes down on the floor. "I live in Atlanta, and I got engaged a few months ago, and before I met my fiancée, I was a bit of a player, and I just got a little scared about not being able to be a player no more, so I told her I was coming here to hang with a cousin, but really I was coming here to meet a woman I'd met online." Kendrick looked up from the floor. His eyes darted from Ethan to Reilley and then to Hunter. They finally landed on Sean. And man, I gotta say, after meeting Sean here and seeing how he loved his wife, had such a good life with him, man, I wanted something deep like that. But now, I might not ever get it. Anyway, when my hookup got here, she got killed by that thing in the pool. Ethan nodded, turned and motioned at Reilley and Hunter. "We're a band on our first tour, and our label booked us into this hellhole." Hunter had picked up the remote to the TV that sat on the chest of drawers across from the beds. "Has anyone turned on the TV?" "I haven't," Sean said. "I don't watch TV. It's a god-awful invention that sucks the life out of you." Cora and Adeline both shook their heads no. Kendrick shrugged. "Nah, man. Been too busy trying to stay alive since I got here." Hunter switched on the TV and immediately wished he hadn't. The first channel displayed strange, tall creatures that were covered in sores. They were sitting at a table eating slices of bloody meat. One of them spoke in a choking, guttural language, and then a chorus of those same voices rang out. This was some kind of hellish sitcom. Hunter switched the channels to what was clearly a snuff film. There was a man dressed completely in black. He was also wearing a black mask facing the camera. He was in a motel room that looked very much like the one they were in. And someone was tied to a chair behind him. As if he'd been waiting for them to tune in to this specific channel, he raised a black-gloved hand and gave a little wave. Then he stepped aside and gestured with his hands as if he were a presenter, inviting an audience to witness something wondrous and magical. Upon seeing what he revealed, everyone in the room gasped. Cora put a hand to her heart and said, "How is this possible?" Tied to the chair was Adeline. She had a black silk gag in her mouth, and she was crying, her mascara bleeding darkly down her face. Everyone turned to the Adeline who was standing in the room with them. She stared at the television screen. Her face was oddly showing no emotion. The black-clad figure on the television leaned over the Adeline tied to the chair and untied the gag. He motioned for her to speak. "Please help me," she sobbed. "The thing with you right now is not me. I'm the real Adeline, and if you don't do something, he's going to kill me. Please help me, please." Hunter stood between the two beds. Cora, Frito, and Adeline were on the other side of the room in front of the vanity. He cast a glance in their direction, clearly calculating how fast he could get to them. Ethan took a step closer, still too far away to help Cora and Frito, if in fact the Adeline in this room was not the real Adeline. Looking at Cora, he said, "At any point while you've been here, was she out of your sight?" Reilley had stepped closer to the TV so that he could get a closer look. "This doesn't look like it's a deep fake or AI generated. Not that it's getting easy to tell nowadays." Sean stood. He held his box cutter at the ready. "So either this Adeline in this room with us is real, or some kind of monster like Tiffany at the check-in desk." The Adeline in the room with them broke her emotionless gaze from the TV. I don't know what's happening, but I swear to you, I'm real." Ethan took another step closer, ready to act. "I want to believe you, but we have to be sure. Cora, was she out of your sight?" "No, she wasn't," Cora said. Then her eyes shot wide. "Wait, yes, for about 10 minutes after we got here, I used the bathroom and she went to get something from one of the snack machines." From the TV came a muffled laugh. They turned to see the dark figure was now standing behind the Adeline tied to the chair. She was nearly hysterical, crying, begging, repeating that she was the real Adeline. The masked man held up a battery-powered drill for everyone to see. It had an 8-inch-long drill bit. He placed the end of the bit on the top of Adeline's head and pulled the trigger. The drill had a high-pitched whine that worked in terrifying harmony to Adeline's scream. Cora gagged and looked away. Everyone in the room was shocked by the carnage as the dark figure drilled numerous holes into the girl's head. "Holy shit, man," Reilley said. "I think that's real." He turned his attention to the Adeline standing next to Frito. "If that's the case, what is she?" Ethan took another step closer. He wanted to be in range to act, but didn't want to provoke. "Frito, Cora, step away." Adeline had a shocked look on her face. She opened her mouth, as if to plead that she was in fact the real Adeline, but seemed to decide against it. She tilted her head as a psychotic smile spread across her face. "Well, what do you know?" she said in a sing-song voice. "I guess I'm a monster." With that, what looked like a fat tapeworm shot from her mouth. It was impossibly long and covered in tiny spikes. It wrapped around Frito's neck as he tried to run away. Still attached to her mouth, the worm yanked back and broke Frito's neck. His head dangled to the left, his eyes glassy and confused. His mouth was working, as if he was trying to ask a question. A second tapeworm shot out of Adeline's mouth and down Frito's throat. They could see his stomach bulging as the worm squirmed inside him. Ethan grabbed Cora by the arm and jerked her away. She fell face down onto the bed. Hunter grabbed her and pulled her across the bed and got her on her feet. Sean opened the door and rushed out of the room. Hunter dragged Cora out. Ethan and Reilley followed. Kendrick covered them with his 9mm. Once everyone was free, he fired a shot at the Adeline thing. The round hit it right between the eyes. It left a dime-sized hole where it had entered, but the vanity mirror behind her was splattered with gore. Somehow, this wound did not kill her. A third worm shot out of her now impossibly wide mouth. Kendrick ducked. The worm missed him by mere inches. Ethan grabbed him by the back of his shirt and dragged him onto the sidewalk. Hunter yanked the door shut, and as a group they ran back toward the west breezeway. But they heard the maid creature as it called out, "Housekeeping." "Holy crap," Ethan said. The maid creature was at the back of the motel. There was a monster in the pool, and they had no idea where Tiffany was. And he was pretty sure the Adeline thing would come after them once it had finished with Frito. His mind raced as he tried to devise a plan. He knew the best way to stay alive was to take bold action and use everyone's skills to their advantage. "I think we need to find another room so we can hunker down and devise a better plan. Hunter, take the rear. Reilley, you hang back with him. I'll take the lead. Kendrick, you're with me. Don't shoot unless you have to, so we can save ammo. Sean, you and Cora are in the middle." Everyone agreed with Ethan's plan. Sean said, "So, which room?" As Ethan considered his answer, they heard the maid. She sounded like she was getting closer. There was also a large splash in the pool. They all looked over and saw the thick, slimy head of the hellbender creature peeking at them above the gore-chunked surface. The pool was only about 30 feet from them, and he knew that as fast as that monster was, it could snatch them at any time it wanted. They had to find safety, fast. "Usually you want high ground," Reilley said, "but I don't think that would be wise here. I think it would limit our escape." Ethan nodded. "I was thinking the same thing. We need a room near one of the breezeways just in case we need to run around the back." He pointed to a room near the east breezeway. "That room there. Follow me." As they made their way down the sidewalk past the other rooms, they heard various disturbing noises. From room 5, they heard what sounded like children singing about murder and dismemberment. From room 7, a woman was praying to Satan. From room 10, someone was screaming that their flesh was being peeled from them. Room 10 happened to be the last room on the bottom floor of the back wing and was closest to the breezeway. On the other side of the breezeway was a shorter wing of motel rooms. Ethan was hoping that room 11 was free of freakishness. He heard a chorus of disturbed laughter coming from the breezeway. He told everyone to hold up, and he shot a glance inside to see the source of the laughter and to make sure it was safe to cross. A fluorescent light flickered erratically inside the space. Against one wall was an ice machine. Against the other was a vintage snack machine. It was painted sky blue, and under the viewing window, the word "Candies" was written in an old-fashioned font. The laughter was coming from the machine. Ethan motioned for them to all be quiet, and they stepped closer so that they could better see the front of the snack machine. Instead of snacks hanging inside the machine, there were 10 shrunken heads. Each one was about the size of a grapefruit. Their eyes were sewn shut with thick cord. The stitching in their mouths had been ripped from their lips. Their faces were dark and withered like old leather. They hung from the pegs inside the machine by their long black hair, and these ghastly heads were the source of the laughter. "That's it, man," Kendrick said. "I've had enough of this shit. I can't take it anymore." He lifted his gun and started firing shots into the candy machine. Glass exploded. Bits of shrapnel struck the wall. Hot yellow sparks popped and sizzled from the machine. "Stop it!" Ethan yelled. Those things may be disturbing, but they aren't an imminent threat. Save your ammo for the things that can kill us." Kendrick stopped firing, but only after he'd wasted 4 bullets. "Yo, man, I'm sorry. I lost it. It's just getting to me, bruh. I just couldn't take it anymore." The machine stopped sparking, and the heads stopped their laughter. In the aftermath of the loud gunshots, the quiet was ominous, oppressive. Then, in tiny, raspy voices, the heads began to chant.
"Take their heads and make them smell. Take their heads, make them smell. Take their heads, make them smell."
They were clearly animated by some supernatural force. They used that force to slip from their pegs and break free from the candy machine. They sprang out through the broken glass and bounced off the ground, the walls, and the ice machine as if they were demonic bouncy balls. Ethan knew about shrunken heads. He understood that they were created by removing the skin, face, and hair from a victim's skull, after which the eyes and mouth were stitched together and the whole mess was stretched over a wooden ball and boiled as a form of preservation. Traditional shrunken heads did not have teeth, but these did. "Run!" Ethan yelled. He pushed Kendrick and the others forward, toward room 11. He pushed through them, intending to use the maid's key to unlock the door. As he did, the shrunken heads bounced around them in a frantic frenzy. They bit and nipped at the group, causing Cora to cry out in pain. Sean hissed in anger as one nipped his ear. Reilley let out a curse and punched one while it was in midair, knocking it back into the breezeway. Hunter had grabbed a pool net, which was on an extendable handle, and he swung it, capturing one of the deadly little beasts. He dropped the net onto the ground and stomped on the head, crushing it. Ethan swiped the key card. The door unlocked and he pushed it open, saying a silent prayer that this room wasn't inhabited by some monstrosity. He took a quick look inside. It looked clear. He shoved Cora and Sean inside. Reilley and Hunter shot through the door. Kendrick was bringing up the rear. He was 2 steps from the door when something resembling a thick, slimy tentacle slithered down from the walkway above them on the 2nd floor, wrapped itself around his neck, and yanked him up. Kendrick didn't even have time to scream. Ethan heard the bones in his neck snap and crack. He looked up and saw Kendrick's body being pulled over the railing and out of sight. Kendrick had dropped his pistol. Ethan snatched it just as 3 of the shrunken heads bounced toward him, tiny, sharp teeth bared as they chanted,
"Take their heads and make them smell."
He turned and leaped into the room, and Reilley slammed the door behind him, but not before 2 of the heads got inside. Sean set his wife's ashes on a table and grabbed the comforter from the queen-size bed. He flung it out like a fisherman's net and caught both heads and stomped them until they stopped moving. They were all breathing hard. Cora was crying. They took stock of their injuries. Sean was missing a chunk from his right ear, and blood drizzled down his neck. Reilley had a bite on his forearm that hadn't broken the skin but was already starting to show a nasty bruise. Hunter had a 6 small nips. Ethan had bites on his neck and cheek. Cora wiped away her tears. She was near the limit of what she could cope with. "What was it that got Kendrick?" "It looked like a tentacle," Sean replied. "I got a pretty good look at it," Ethan said. "I don't think that's what it was." "Then what do you think?" Hunter asked. Ethan took a beat to replay what he had seen. "I think it was a tongue." There was a moment of silence as what was left from their group processed this information. Then Sean said, "That was a damn big tongue, son. And that means it belongs to an even bigger mouth." "How can something that big be above us?" Cora said. "I mean, something that massive would be heavy." Ethan had already considered this, and he had come to the only conclusion that made sense. Reality is different here at this motel. We have to accept that and adapt to it if we want to survive. Sean nodded. "Okay. Even though it doesn't make any sense, I'll own it. You seem to have a good head on your shoulders. What do you think is our next step?" "Well, I think there's something controlling all this," Ethan replied. "We find whatever or whoever that is and we kill them." "Who do you think it is?" Cora asked. "Tiffany," Ethan said. This information reignited Reilley's hot-headedness. "Then let's go kill that crazy Lita Ford-looking bitch." As if she had been waiting for Reilley to say that line, Tiffany yelled at them from out in the courtyard. Her tone was playful and taunting. "Hey, space cadets, come see what I have." Everyone in the room took a pause. Sean looked tired but resolved. Reilley was angry and ready to charge into battle. Hunter shot a quiet glance at Ethan. Cora was wringing her hands. "If she's in control, how can we defeat her?" "Hurry up," Tiffany yelled. "You're gonna miss something that's really rad." Hunter was still looking expectantly at Ethan. "You're thinking something. What is it?" "These monsters, the invisible barrier keeping us on the motel premises and Tiffany," Ethan said. "All of them are supernatural." Hunter nodded. "Well, that's pretty damn obvious, bro. What are you getting at?" "We don't fight supernatural battles in a natural way," Ethan said. Reilley was intrigued. "Well, that makes sense, but how do we go about that?" He glanced around the room. "I don't see any silver bullets or wooden stakes lying around." Ethan always wore a silver cross on a chain around his neck. It had been given to him by his priest the day he joined the church. He grabbed the cross and held it up. "We have this." Reilley looked peeved. "I'm a believer too, man, but that's one tiny cross against all these freaking monsters. It's not enough." "It's a start," Ethan said. "We have to believe that some other weapon will be presented to us." From outside in the courtyard, Tiffany yelled, "Come on! I'm ready to rock and roll all night and party every day." "She just quoted Kiss," Sean said. At the same time, Reilley, Ethan, and Hunter said, "That band sucks." Then Ethan stepped forward and pulled back the curtains, and they looked out onto the courtyard. Kendrick was tied to the palm tree that sprung from the small landscaped oasis. "I see you peeking," Tiffany said. "That's no fun. Come out and play." "I'm not going out there," Cora said. She was shaking and pale. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. "How can Kendrick be alive?" Hunter asked. "He's not alive," Ethan said. "I heard his neck break, but we need to see what she's up to. Besides, sitting here is not getting us anywhere. This is our opportunity to fight and get this over with." Ethan knew he could trust Hunter and Reilley, so he opened the door and stepped out into the courtyard. Sean glanced at the urn containing his wife's ashes, which sat on the table. The look on his face seemed to convey that he knew he wouldn't be able to fulfill her last wish. Then he stood taller, resolved, and followed the boys out of the room. Even though Cora was reluctant, She realized she didn't want to be in the room alone. She'd come to believe that nowhere was safe in this damned motel, and that she had better chance of survival as part of the group. Tiffany stood beside Kendrick. She was the epitome of an 80s rock and roll album cover with her big blonde hair, tight leather pants, pouty red lips, horns, and tail. She pointed one of her black clawed fingers at the gun that Ethan held in his right hand. "Oh, look! He's the one who likes to shoot his gun, but he don't know what it means." "Nirvana," Hunter said. She just quoted Nirvana. Reilley shook his head in frustration. "Damn it, she's so hot," he said. "If she wasn't some kind of demon bitch, she'd be the perfect woman." "Focus," Ethan said. "Yeah," Hunter said. "Situational awareness." Not only was Hunter a good fighter because of his Muay Thai training, but was always aware of his surroundings because his dad, a retired Army Ranger, had drilled the concept into his brain since he was a young boy. They glanced around the strange battlefield. The slimy pool creature glared at them from the deep end of the pool. The shrunken heads were hovering and bouncing around them in a wide circle, giggling maniacally. Behind them on the second floor, the thick, giant tongue protruded from the open door to room 33. It dangled and squirmed ominously like a tentacle over the railing. Esmeralda, the grotesque hybrid of cricket and maid, hopped from the breezeway to their right and stood just inside the poison-yellow glow of the courtyard lights. They were surrounded, and they all sensed that they were in a situation much worse than just a mortal threat. Their souls were also in jeopardy. Tiffany glanced around. "Looks like y'all are in a gnarly situation, surrounded by all kinds of grody things." "We're ready to end this," Ethan said. "What do you want?" Tiffany smiled. Even with fangs, it was the kind of smile that made the hearts of men skip a beat and their blood simmer with lust. "I'm looking for nothing but a good time," she said. "Just living my life, sin after sin." "Poison," Reilley said, realizing she had just quoted lyrics from two of their songs. Hunter grimaced as if he had just tasted bad whiskey. "They suck too." Tiffany gave everyone a playful look. Though Reilley was ready to fight, he was so beguiled by her raw sexuality that without realizing it, he took a lustful step toward her. Hunter grabbed him by the arm. "Hold on, horn dog. Check your lust." Tiffany gave a coquettish pout. "Aw, they won't let poor little Reilley come play with me." Reilley let his eyes linger on Tiffany for a long heartbeat. Then he shook his head as if breaking a spell and gave Hunter a sheepish shrug. "Sorry, man. She's got some kind of power over me." Ethan scrutinized the scene. He glanced up at the thick, writhing tongue behind them. He wondered what the hell it was attached to, then decided it probably didn't matter at this point. He turned his attention back toward Tiffany. "That's not really Kendrick. I know that thing over there killed him. I heard his neck break." Tiffany gave a playful shrug. "That doesn't mean he's dead. Besides, there are 52 ways to murder anyone." "Misfits," Reilley said. She quoted their song. "We know," Hunter said to Reilley. He had also recognized the lyrics to Saturday Night, which was one of the Misfits' most popular songs. "We're all Misfits fans, bro." He turned to Tiffany. "I ain't gonna lie. At first it was kind of cool, but now it's tedious." Tiffany frowned. "Just trying to make it fun." "Fun?" Reilley said. "Ever since we checked in here, there's been nothing but murder happening. How the hell is that any fun?" Tiffany's frown morphed into a sneer. I didn't say I was trying to make it fun. For you? She glanced over at Kendrick and yelled, "Come crawling faster! Obey your master!" Kendrick's whole body went rigid. He thrashed against the ropes that tied him to the palm tree. He began to gag and choke. His chest heaved, not as if he were taking a deep breath, but instead as if something were trying to escape. With a sickening crunch and a wet tearing of flesh, his chest peeled open, and 10 of his ribs poked out and began to elongate. They twitched and flicked like the legs of some kind of crab. Faster than any of them could imagine, his legs transformed by merging into a single long serrated tail with a sharp barb at the tip. He broke free from his restraints and fell forward onto his new crab-like legs. His transformation stopped, leaving him a sickening hybrid of human and crustacean. His head stayed fully human, and his eyes darted from person to person. He licked his lips as thick ropes of drool poured down his chin. Ethan and Reilley and Hunter all took cautious steps back. Cora reached out and grabbed Sean's arm and pulled him close. She was shivering in terror. Sean patted her hand, looked her in the eyes, and said, "I won't let you die." Kendrick shot toward Hunter, who juked to the side. Ethan fired a shot into Kendrick's back, but the skin on his back had morphed into a shell-like carapace. The bullet ricocheted off and into the palm tree. The other creatures all leaped into action. The giant tongue lashed out from above them and wrapped around Cora's waist. She screamed. Sean lashed out with his box cutter and cut a deep gash into the tongue. It uncurled from her and yanked back, flicking a spray of bright blood. Then it lashed out at Sean and wrapped around his waist and squeezed. Sean yelled in pain as his ribs and spine were crushed. Blood poured out of his mouth and nose. Even though he was dying, he was still feebly slashing at the tongue. Hunter saw what was happening. He grabbed a drumstick from his back pocket and plunged it into the thick, slimy flesh. The tongue flinched in pain but did not let go of Sean. He yanked the drumstick free and began repeatedly stabbing the tongue. Bright blood splattered all over him, and the tongue finally dropped Sean, letting his body fall onto the concrete. While Hunter fought the giant tongue, Reilley squared off against the shrunken heads. There had originally been 10 of them, but earlier Sean had caught 2 with the blanket and squashed them. Hunter had killed 1 with the pool net. That left 7. They bounced and careened at him. He took a stance, holding his flying V by the neck, and swung it like a club. The first one he hit exploded into a gooey spray of brown ichor and dried flesh. He batted a second one that fell into the pool, and the Hellbender man snatched it and plopped it into his mouth. That left 5. One tangled itself into Reilley's long hair and began gnawing on his scalp. Another sunk its teeth into his thigh, biting through the jeans and into his flesh. Reilley smacked it to the ground and slammed his guitar down on it, crushing it. Then he pulled the one out of his hair and tossed it away. Ethan leveled his pistol and fired a shot that hit it midair. Ethan was relatively new to handling guns and gave a surprised hoot at his lucky marksmanship. That left only 3 shrunken heads. Reilley swung at them, but they had caught on to his strategy and bobbed and bounced at him in such a way that they flew under and over his swings, biting him, tearing away tiny chunks from his arms and torso. Ethan twirled around just as Esmeralda hopped into the air at him. She was clearly trying to jump on him and crush him, but he fired 2 shots. One missed. The other tore a chunk from the side of her head, and she fell to the ground, twitching. Kendrick slammed into Ethan, causing him to drop the gun. It clattered over the edge of the pool and into the water. Ethan hit the ground hard, Kendrick on top of him. Kendrick was a horror hybrid of man and crab. The 10 legs protruded from his chest, and they scratched and grabbed and stabbed Ethan's body. Ethan yelled in pain. He grabbed Kendrick's throat with both his hands, trying to keep Kendrick from biting him. Reilley ran around the edge of the pool, trying to get some distance between him and the 3 remaining shrunken heads. One of the heads was clamped down on his shoulder. He grabbed it by its long, stringy hair and ripped it free, tearing away a chunk of his own flesh. He swung the head hard against the wall, and it splattered in a chunky black goo. He was now able to turn his attention back toward the other 2 heads. One of them dipped at him, chanting in some arcane language. But Reilley correctly read that this was a ruse to distract him while the other shrunken head bounced in for a bite. Reilley feigned a swing at the distracting head, causing it to dart away. Then he swung his flying V and knocked the attacking head up over the second-floor railing, and it smashed into the door to room 23 and dropped into a broken mass onto the sidewalk. The remaining head had darted back near the pool and hovered just above the water. Hellbender Man leaped from the water, snatched it in his jaws, and chewed it into a black, bloody mess before slipping beneath the surface. Reilley ran over to help Ethan. He started bashing Kendrick with his guitar. Kendrick twisted his head and snapped at Reilley. Ethan saw his opportunity and rolled away. With a yell, Hunter leaped through the air, his drumsticks held high, sharp ends pointed down, and landed on Kendrick's back, slamming the drumsticks into each side of his head. Kendrick dropped dead. Ethan glanced around, taking in the scene. He saw the giant tongue hanging limply over the railing. Hunter had managed to kill it by stabbing it with its drumsticks. Cora was okay. She had grabbed the pool net and was using it as a weapon while she kept a wary eye on Hellbender Man, who was chewing on the shrunken head. She was ready to fight should he decide to attack. Knowing that their battle was supernatural, they realized that these creatures could be resurrected at any moment, or that others could be summoned, so they were wary, on edge, eager to be done with it. While Cora and Hunter kept an eye on Hellbender Man, Ethan and Reilley turned their attention on Tiffany. She stood next to the palm tree, her hip cocked out and her claw-tipped thumbs hooked on her studded belt. Her eyes glittered with playful malice. She took in the scene, with the dead monsters laying around and the bruised and bitten and bloodied group before her. She gave a punk rock smirk. Crazy, but that's how it goes. Reilley grimaced at yet another one of her rock lyric quotes. Ozzy Osbourne, he said. Crazy Train. I'm tired of this crap. Tiffany held up both hands in the sign of the devil. Her forked tongue flicked. Her tail twitched. You haven't won yet, she said. I'm going to call up the forces of hell. Evil, my words defy. Evil has no disguise. Evil will take your soul. Evil, my wrath unfolds. As she charged the group, she twirled her hands, preparing to conjure up demons from hell to aid her in her fight. But Ethan stepped forward and began singing, Arise, Lord, deliver me, my God. Strike my enemies on the jaw. Break the teeth of the wicked. Tiffany slammed into an invisible wall. She stumbled back. She was confused and angry. What is that song? Psalm number 3, Ethan said. I figured you've been quoting lyrics to us all damn night. It's time I returned the favor. No! Tiffany cried. Ethan glanced at Hunter, Reilley, and Cora, then quoted another psalm. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the pestilence that walks in the darkness. Tiffany was thrown back against the palm tree. She slid down the trunk in a heap. Reilley and Hunter shot forward. Reilley smashed his flying V down on her head. Her skull split open, but her eyes burned red with rage. She tried to push herself up, but Hunter slammed both drumsticks into her, one in her heart, the other in her forehead. She was weak and dying. She tried to speak, to utter another lyric, but her speech was slurred. Ethan took the tiny silver cross that hung around his neck and pushed it against Tiffany's forehead. As her flesh began to burn, he said, "The wicked plots against the just and gnashes at him with their teeth. But the Lord preserves the lives of his saints and delivers them from the hand of the wicked." Tiffany no longer looked like lust personified. Now that she was beaten, her true form began to reveal itself. It was a hideous, scaly beast with horns and tail. As Ethan repeated the words to the holy song and held the cross against her forehead, her flesh began to sizzle and dissolve. An oily black cloud rose from her burning skin. It stank of rot and sin. In less than a minute, which seemed much longer, there was nothing left but a burnt place on the tree. Cora said, "Hellbender Man is gone. He crawled out of the pool and ran off into the night." Everyone glanced warily around, looking for Hellbender Man or any other beast that may attack, but they were alone, surrounded only by the carnage. "You feel that?" Ethan said. "Feel what?" Hunter said. Cora understood Ethan's question. "There's a peace around us." She paused for a moment, trying to find the words. "It's like we were being spiritually attacked at the same time we were being physically attacked. But we didn't realize that oppression upon us until it was removed. Does that make any sense?" Hunter gave Cora an appreciative smile. "It does. It makes perfect sense." "What made you think to start quoting Psalms?" Reilley asked. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Like the others, he was weary and in pain from his wounds. A couple were bad, but not severe or life-threatening. They would heal and likely leave cool scars, not that anyone would ever believe how they'd come by them. "Well, Tiffany was clearly a demon," he said, "and at the end she was quoting Slayer lyrics at us. That band may rock, but those lyrics were dark and evil. I figured the best way to fight her was with holy songs. Tiffany brought a machine gun to the battle, and I brought a tank." Hunter liked that. "Damn, that was good. I wish I'd have thought of it." Ethan smirked at his friend. "That would have been impossible. You're a drummer. You're too stupid." Hunter playfully rammed his fist into Ethan's shoulder, causing him to stumble back a step. "Maybe not, but I can still kick your ass in Muay Thai." There was a moment of laughter. Then Ethan started toward the room where Sean had stored the urn that held his dead wife's ashes. "What are you doing?" Reilley asked. Ethan said, "We're going to honor Sean's dying wish." Hunter and Reilley looked at him as if he'd lost his mind. "But we need to call the sheriff or something," Reilley said. Ethan glanced over his shoulder at what was left of the group. He saw no fear in their eyes. There was only weariness and loss. They needed rest and time to mourn for Adeline, Sean, Kendrick, Frito, and Snowball. "First, we finish what Sean came here to do," he said. We'll call the authorities after that and get a doctor to patch us up. Then, we will honor our friends by getting to the next gig and melting some faces with a badass concert." Hunter and Reilley nodded and smirked at such a rock and roll plan of action. Even Cora gave an appreciative grunt of approval. They collected the University of Tennessee urn that held the ashes of Sean's beloved wife, and under the pale light of the moon, they made their way to the edge of the cliff and let the gentle breeze carry Jennifer's ashes into the bay.